There we go. You mentioned that you roadied for some bands. How did that start? Were you like a drum tech for bands, or what were you doing?
Well, I think I just wanted to learn more about the mechanics of music and live music in particular, um, and I used to go to a lot of shows, and like you said, that place that you visited in my back room, my studio back there, it was a garage that we converted into a soundproof room, and in I guess starting in like '84. Uh, I would go to shows and I met bands because I was more social back then, not so much now. And I remember meeting like the Chili Peppers and asked them, hey, if you guys need a place to rehearse? No one had a place to rehearse back then. So they rehearsed there for like a year or so. And then I met the Pandoras when they were playing the Palace and then they started rehearsing there, and they ended up being, rehearsing there for many years. And so that's how I started writing for them. And then I believe I was at a Cavern Club show. There's the Cavern Club was like just off Hollywood Boulevard. It was like a kind of a garage punk
Hmm.
place in the 80s, like in 86, I believe this was. And I used to go there like every weekend when they had the shows. Like I forget, it was like on the weekend. And I think I was with Melanie or someone at that. And Red Cross were like backing up Sky Saxon, and it
Wow.
it was kind of it wasn't great, but they were great. Um, and anyway, that's how I met those guys. And then they started rehearsing at the house too. And I would just sit in there and just watch. And I remember just sitting for hours watching the Chili Peppers and watching all these bands and kind of just um, and it's the same thing with photography. The best way to learn is to really just kind of throw yourself into it and watch people that you respect, and you'll learn a lot.
You mentioned Melanie. She's actually been on this podcast too. She's really, really cool. She's still playing too.
Yeah, yeah, we still keep in touch and grab lunch every now and then. She lives near me, and yeah, she's a really great person. I feel lucky to have known her all these years.
Now, I wasn't wrong about L7, right? They rehearsed there too, right?
They did. I met L7. We were on the same record label, Epitaph, at that time, and I think I met them at Raji. Oh no, wait, I met Donita at Club Lingerie, if I'm remembering it correctly. But I remember seeing him at Raji's like with the dude drummer back when they had a guy
That's
drummer.
early.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And they were really cool. And so yeah, they ended up that's just how it just all happened very quickly. But that was a very good kind of creative time with a great group of people. And
Yeah,
that's
when
how I
I
met Dave too. I was playing in the band The Last, and it was that which was like Bill Stevens' favorite band. And I remember inviting them to a rehearsal, and then they started rehearsing there like all did. It was right when Descendants just had broken up, like on the final tour. And
oh,
then so when Dave flew out, that's he like that's where he started rehearsing at my place too.
I'm gonna talk to you about Smalling. Now that makes sense. So he was in All at the time when you met him. Okay, because I know you know Bill and those guys, Bill Stevenson and them. So
Yeah.
Stephen Egerton worked on some of the your records too. Um, when I met Jennifer Finch, L7 was just a brand new band. They were like, this is really on, early on when I met them. I don't know if that puts the time. I'm confused about the time. I know it was the early 90s, but I can't remember exactly.
Well, the first album is like with Bite the Wax Tadpole. It's the Epitaph record. Do you know that one?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Was that
then
before 91?
yes, I
It
believe.
was.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
because when they were rehearsing at my place before Smell the Magic, which was like the first Sub Pop, And that record to me was like just the best. It was just so just I mean, every song is amazing, and I like all the records, but that one to me is kind of special. It just, you know, how records just remind you of that time period,
Yeah. So
and
you were engulfed in a scene with all of these bands around you. That's fantastic. I'm going to talk to you more about your photography later, but I'm curious, did you start with your photography at a young age too, or was mostly the punk rock Dave at that time?
yeah, I didn't, I wasn't really doing photography seriously back then, but I ended up bringing my camera on the road and taking photos, but I wasn't really serious. I didn't really. Um, I wasn't thinking about my shot. I was just wanted to document what was happening. Where
Right.
versus like if I was doing it now, although I'm not good at that kind of photography, I would be thinking about the shot more. You know what I mean? Back then I was just like boom, boom, you know, but there's some good shots. But like I took on the road with SNFU and with all, there's like a lot of I have a lot of photos from that time. Um, so
That's
I was thinking
fantastic.
maybe doing a zine of all that stuff, just because I do have a lot of it, and that camera actually got passed around. I didn't take every photo. There's photos of me, and but most of them I took, I guess. But
So with
uh,
those bands touring and you went along as to help them out, or was the Chemical
well, no,
People on that tour as well?
we were on the road with them. We were touring too. Yeah.
Wow. Can you talk about how the Chemical People got together I mean, was that your first band?
Yes. Um, well, Ed and I guess I went off track, but Ed and I met in grammar school and started playing, and we just kind of were playing to records, you know, like DOA and all the Sex Pistols and Ramones, just like everybody else was back then. And um, and then eventually we met this. There's a band called the Burglars, and they went to Beverly Hills High also, and they were like playing the cafe, and you know they were kind of, but they were not really known at all. But I still like if listening to those songs that they had now. They don't have a record out, but I have a cassette of some of them. And they were like incredible. They were like the band that never, you know, made it or
Burglars.
no one ever got to hear. But we ended up playing several of their songs and putting them on our records. And like Mood Changer is a Burglar song,
Oh yeah.
and Submarine Dream is a Burglar song. And so one of the guys in the band was about to go through medical school. He was like real serious about being a doctor, and he wasn't committed to that band, but he saw that Ed and I were like a pretty good, you know, I guess group at that, you know, just a rhythm section at that time. And so he said he had these songs he wanted to record, and they were really good songs. And that ended up being like the first single, and then also the first side of the Blair side of the So Sexist record.
Yeah, you guys have a lot of singles and songs on compilations and a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
records too. And so did it happen for you guys right away when you formed in 86? Were you getting on good shows because you knew people around, or did it take a little while to build up to So Sexist?
I don't think we didn't start really playing shit. We played like the Troubadour, and we played like Madame Wong. Madame Wong's was our first show, and the Troubadour. But like, you know, just our friends were at those shows. And then in like 87, um, I guess that's when Bill got us signed to Cruise, which
Cruise.
Cruz wasn't even a label yet. He's like, this is like related to SST and Gin's doing it, but like we have the first record because all hadn't done a record yet, and then you guys will be the second record, and so that's how that started. And then they took us out on the road. But before that, like Red Cross took us out for like on our first road trip, and I remember we played with them and like Zodiac Mind Warp. It was like a show with that, so that'll kind of date
That's
the
cool.
shows. And that was really kind of, our first adventure, you know.
Did you do the whole country?
With them, it was just we just went up north and play. I forget we played like San Francisco, and then you know, just two other. I don't even remember where exactly, but somewhere up north there. There was a lot of. There used to be a lot of like places like San Jose, and but I don't remember exactly where.
I don't know why, but I think the first time I heard of the chemical people may have been in someone showed me a clip from New Wave Hookers. Is that possible? And they said, "Do you know these guys?" And I'm like, "What?" And you guys had did the music for the soundtrack for an adult film, right?
Yeah, we did two different ones. Um, is is interesting because we did. You know, everybody would like kind of boot like use like a design and then put you plop your name on it. That was like real popular in the, you know, I guess people still do it, but more so in the late 80s, early 90s. And we used the Dark Brothers logo and then put our name on it. And and then Greg Dark, the director, who later directed like Britney Spears and um, uh, a lot of rap videos,
I didn't know that. Wow.
Bone Thugs and Harmony, um, and but a lot of major artists. He, I remember someone saying he's at your show, and we were playing the music machine, and he's like this older guy, wearing a Discharge shirt, and I remember we met him, and he's like, yeah, I want you guys to, if you're into it, would you score a movie? And so, yeah, we actually went and this is like before digital. So we like went in the studio and like they were playing the movie and we just jammed to it, you know.
Wow.
I mean, we wrote like just a few kind of jam ideas and then we just got in the studio and we were good at jamming because all those bands in the rehearsal days would just we just mix and jam and you know like oh this person's here and the rest of the band so we go and jam for like an hour you know it was a very fun time for different bands kind of making you know lifelong friendships and kind of learning more about you know
You know, I was going to ask you about this later, but sex work has become a lot more accepted now than it was back then. Was it
yeah
difficult for you guys being around that, and did it affect your reputation at all?
well it's like getting back to the soundtrack, the second movie we did for Greg, he actually some of our songs didn't actually what happened. Oh, it didn't really. Well, the music didn't really get put where it should have, and that's because he was in jail for pandering, because the laws were different back then, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and it's funny when I look at some of my favorite like photographers, you know, people like Elmer Batters and people like that, and it's like this guy actually went to jail for like taking photos of women's feet, like that they
Wow.
had, you know, totally, you know, they gotten paid for. It was totally consensual, and he's just for taking photos, and so it just shows you how things change over time. Um, and yeah, fast forward to now, it has changed a lot. I honestly, our first two records where we kind of did the porno, blah blah blah, whatever. I, it was kind of a mistake and stupid and juvenile, and I really it really didn't help us in any way. Not that we had we were just like young and stupid, I think. And so yeah, those records, I like some of the songs, but I kind of regret that it was like because it just didn't really help us. Having said that, there's other bands that kind of follow what we did and were a lot more successful at it, I guess. So good for them.
I know I saw I was doing research all week and I did see you guys were playing live and Gina Fine was at your show on stage. So it probably helped you with your next career getting to know some of those people, right? As a photographer.
The funny thing is, yeah, she used to come to a bunch of our shows, uh, but it didn't because that my next when I started shooting for LFP and Larry Flint Publications. Um, Actually, that happened through something else entirely, and like none of those people from the past ever really were visible in the new like field that I was working in, photography.
Uh, I'm going to get back to the music, but I just remembered I actually knew a couple of women that were in the adult business. I'll just say their stage names. Barbara Dare was my neighbor in
Uh,
Marina Del Rey. I don't know if you knew her, Stacy. She doesn't care. I haven't talked to her in years, anyways. But she was really cool. And Dana Dillon. I actually met her when she became a writer for a magazine. Sherry Sloan's her real name. So I had gone to a few parties and met people in that industry, and tell you, I met some of the nicest people. There's no doubt about it. And
oh yeah, it's funny. I have a YouTube channel where I guess I did it for a few years. I don't remember when I started, but I started when when I would shoot the girls for layouts because I was shooting for layouts for like all the Hustler and Barely Legal and Taboo, and I would like interview them on camera, and I put those interviews all up on. But the interviews are not really. They're more like just straight. They're like no makeup and they're street clothes.
I love your
Just
interviews, man. I've
oh, you
watched
saw these.
tons of them.
Oh,
I'm going to
thanks,
talk.
man.
I'm going to talk about some of them, but let's get through the because your music career is great. Now, I can't go through every single Chemical People record, but
Good.
Tenfold Hate, I like that record a lot. I
Oh,
remember All the Best Things. I think you sang that one actually, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
sang mo most of them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. That was like kind of a semi-hit at the time, if I recall correctly. I wanted to ask you about Bill and Steven because they worked on that. Did you work with them a lot? Because I couldn't find a lot of info on who recorded a lot of these records, but I'm thinking you did a lot with those guys, right?
Definitely. Yeah, they did everything everything up until the right thing. That was like the last record they did.
90. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like with hanging out with Bill back then?
Oh, yeah, it was great. It was great. I love those guys. Still do. Don't see them as much because they don't live here anymore. But when they're in town, I don't even really go to shows that much anymore. But I did see them at Hermosa at this kind of friends and family night that they did, and got to hang out for a while. And
Was that
they're
the flag thing at the,
oh, it's at the VFW Hall
yeah,
thing.
were you at
That
that?
I was at that too, but that was a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was more recent. It was like a few years ago. Wait, was it a few years ago? I don't know. It was like a couple of years ago, I think. And they were great. And the flag thing was great too. But yeah.
You guys are kind of fall into the Descendants kind of poppy punk sound, I guess. I mean, I'm sure that's been said to you over the years.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely like a huge influence. And I guess back then there weren't as many bands just playing music, so it was easier to stand out.
You guys had an enormous catalog. How were you able to pull that off? The writing, the recording? Because if you look at in between 88 and 90 especially, you did a lot. 91, 92. Did you guys have management or did you do it all yourself?
No, we did it all ourselves. I mean, we had a booking agent, thankfully, you can't put out anything if you don't have a label or I guess you could do it yourself, but no one's gonna ever see it really.
Cruise was a good company to be involved with, though. They gave you guys the artwork you wanted and everything, right?
Cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, they would let us do whatever we wanted, basically. Um, they were great, and so Epitaph too. Like all those great labels, just kind of let you do your thing, and they don't try to um, force you to be something you're not. So,
We started talking about Smalley before, Dave Small, and I want to mention that I did text him yesterday, and he said to say hello
oh,
because
cool. I love Dave. Yeah.
yeah, he said you talked about your cat's photos, and My cat's sleeping under a blanket right there. I loved your
Nice.
cat photos too, by the
Oh, you
way.
saw him? Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
they're fantastic. And
Thanks.
he mentioned that too, because he thought that your cat photos were. I'm like, wow, that's funny. Most people don't mention that, but I love them too. You said you met Dave because all rehearsed in your space. How did that evolve into you? Because I don't know if people out there know this, but they're going to know now. You were part of the original Down by Law, and
Yeah.
they're still together now. Talk about that whole period and how you ended up playing with Dave.
Well, we toured a lot together, so we developed a friendship, all those guys. And I forget what tour it was, but I think it was like All Right for President, I think. And at that time, you could tell like Bill's work ethic is like, it's a kind of a black flag mentality of, get on the road, get home, record the record, and then get back on the. It was just, it's nonstop. And I don't think Dave was really wanting to work at that level because it's also like if you're singing, it's a lot harder, if your voice can't handle it. Like it just makes it more complicated and frustrating, obviously, if you've got like, consecutive shows and you lose your voice um, but I'll let Dave tell that story. But anyways, at that time we were just talking about doing a side project and so we that's how we started. But it's funny, and I heard Jamie talk about this in a podcast, Jamie, our guitar player, and it did. His memory is maybe a little better than mine, um, but the original Down by Law, I believe, after hearing Jamie's um, episode of the Mojack, what I forget whatever that Mojack podcast, the SST thing, you know
Okay,
what I'm talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah.
Um, he said that it was originally Bill Bartel, me, and Michael Corcio for the 3 o'clock. Uh, But I know that we never practiced with Michael Corcio. That would have been a dream because he's like one of my heroes. But I do believe we practiced with Bill Bartel, and
Bill.
I think what happened is Bill eventually just got frustrated and said, "Fuck this," and then Jamie joined the band, and it was me. I think me and Ed all the time, but okay, where am I going with this?
Before you
So
go there, I'm just going to tell you that I worked at an Enigma. That's when I moved to LA,
okay,
and I got to know Bill Bartel, rest in peace. He was quite the character for sure,
yeah,
without a
yeah,
doubt.
I miss that guy. Did you see Dave Markey's documentary on him?
No, is it good?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, it was shown at Slam Dance, and I don't know if it's available online yet, but it's called The Secret Lives of Bill Bartel.
Oh, I have heard about that. I do need to see that. I do need
Yeah,
to
it's
see
really
that.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, White Flag and all the nuns and two. I can't remember the name of that wacky band he had, where he had all these different people.
Tater Tots.
Tater Tots, yeah, Tater Tots. But
Yeah,
the reason I met him is Gasatanka was his label,
yeah.
and we worked together on the FUs at Enigma.
Oh,
He
okay.
brought the FUs over there. But go ahead, go now. We'll go back to Down by Law. So you met.
So yeah, so the band that ended up playing shows was originally with Jamie. It was the Chems with Dave singing,
I
basically.
saw you guys.
Yeah, I remember the first show was the Anti-Club, and
You did the
um,
teaser too, right? Coconut
yeah, we
teaser.
played all those. Yeah,
Yeah.
we played a teaser with the Green Day. Yeah.
I don't.
Um,
I don't think I saw that show, but
but we
someone.
played a
I
teaser several times, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Someone told me that I was at the show when Green Day played, but I don't remember that. I don't know why, but they weren't well known then at all. They weren't even like known that much, were they at that point?
I mean, I knew who they were. They sounded good, but they weren't popular yet. They were just like punk rock popular. Um,
Because you could go down to the teaser and see like six bands, and
totally, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was I used to go to every show there. You know, we play there so many times,
Yeah.
with everybody, no effects and yeah, everybody. Meatmen played there. I remember Bill and I played a song with the Meatmen there. We played like two songs, like Hot Rails to Hell, and I think another song. But anyway, Brett Gurwitz signed us. We did the first record at West Beach with Brett, and then before the record came out, Jamie, like, I don't know, whatever, he probably regrets it now, but didn't want to be in the band, got all upset, and then he didn't want his name on the record, and so Dave's like, what do we do? Like the guy played on the record, you know. I'm like, well, he is on, like, first of all, he sounds great on the record. So it's just like, why wouldn't you want your name on it? But he was upset for whatever reason. And so I was like, just put guitar by JP. And so I can't even remember but we'd gotten Chris Bagarozzi because we were friends with
Yeah.
Chris from Clawhammer, and he's a great guitar player and still a great friend. I see him um, usually a few times a year. And so, but he doesn't play on that record. I think his name might be on it, but he doesn't play on it. If you look at it, it says like guitar by JP. Um, but he plays on Blue. Chris
The
does that.
second record.
Yeah, and he did all the tours with us. I think Jamie played live a couple times, but after that he bailed.
I just have to ask you this because it's considered one of the greatest songs to come from the Boston scene, and I wondered if you knew the song "Best Friends"
Oh,
by
it's a
the
great one.
Outlets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
did you listen? Did Dave like play you the Outlets version of it, and then you
Yeah,
learned the
I
song?
didn't know it before Dave played it for me. And yeah, we love that song. It's a great song. But I didn't even know who the outlets were. I think that was more a regional thing, right?
Yeah, no one really knew them back then. We did have a record come out on Enigma, but it was
It
they
was
were like
your band.
yeah, they're oh no, I wasn't in the band. I
Oh,
signed them to Enigma actually
oh,
because I
okay.
knew them from Boston, and they became more famous as the years go by because they were ahead of their time. You know, sure you heard that before, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's a catchy tune, that's for sure.
Yeah. So you did the Blue record after that, and what happened? You guys just decided. I know you were putting out Chemical People records at the same time, so you were doing double time.
Yeah, I mean, when all you're doing is music and you live at home, you have a lot of time. So that's, when you're young, that's the time to kind of produce a lot. If you're driven, I was very driven, and so that answers your question from a while back. How did you do so much? It's like, well, yeah, that's all I was doing. So it's time to do it.
Yeah, I remember I worked this deal out with Dave and he came over to A&M Studios and we did some demos, but he had a new lineup by the time he got there. I was surprised about that too. He kind of changed the lineup.
Yeah, we did that European tour, and things kind of it didn't go great. Although the tour was good, and yeah, we decided when we get back, Ed and I left, and then Chris left, and Dave found a new band. But I actually went back and recorded. I played drums on I think two singles with them at that time, just because Hunter was just kind of. I mean, I don't know. Hunter could have played them fine, but maybe it was a way for them to reach out and just go. Just so we were all friends, but there was no hard feelings. It's like just so.
Yeah,
But
small.
Dave really continued with that band, I will say. He like really stuck to it, and they got way more popular after we left. I think that was when kind of punk rock started to break,
It's kind
right?
of funny when you look at that period now, and we didn't even mention that between All and Down by Law, he was in Dag Nasty. I mean, it was a lot happened in a short period of time during that time.
Really did. I mean, and then I remember Scream and there were so many great bands of that time. I mean, I remember seeing another band that doesn't, I guess it seems like a few of them are dead, but RKL, I remember seeing
Oh
them at
yeah.
like at the country club, And I mean, that Bomber, who later switched to guitar, I mean, that guy was an incredible drummer, though. I mean, I remember him I was just blown away that this guy was so good. Um, but there was a lot of great bands back then. Yeah.
Did did the punk scene kind of impact what you started to do with your visual work later on?
I don't know. I don't know if it did. I was in between the photography and the music. Was I had a merchandising company, Chaser. And we did like I kind of was kind of sick of the being on the road and playing music,
Hmm.
and so I knew all these bands, so I thought I could just do merchandising and sell T-shirts, and I ended up doing skateboards and for a couple bands, and that was cool. But and that was like in the 90, like the mid 90s through the I think maybe the early 2000s, or maybe I think maybe I think I sold it in the mid 90s, the company. It's still going on. Chaser is,
Yeah, I didn't
but
know
yeah,
about
now
that.
they're well known now. They do a lot of like more boutique stuff, I think, for like women's clothes, I think now. But yeah, I started it.
You kind of worked with Richard Kern too at some point, didn't you?
So when I was doing Chaser, I was licensing a lot of niche kind of stuff, exploitation films like Jack Hill movies, and Ray Dennis Steckler, and just stuff that a lot of people don't know about. But if you see that in a store, you're like, holy shit, it's um, and so when I was doing that, I licensed Richard Kern design, a couple of them, and so that's how I met him. And then when he came to LA, we met, and he's kind of like laid back. We have a similar, I guess, personality, and so we got along. And then I told him I was a photographer, and he's like, "Oh wow!" And then I ended up assisting him on his trips to LA, which is the reason he came here most of the time. And so from that, I learned a lot about photography, assisting him. And and the way, just in the same way I learned watching bands rehearse, you learn how to interact with the people around you. And I would say it's similar in photography, the way you interact with a model, especially something like that where there's nudity and like you don't want to be a creep, um, and so you can see the way that the way he would make a model comfortable and just his personality, and I think I learned a lot from that. And telling the asking somebody to do something that may seem like embarrassing, you have to kind of approach it in a delicate way, right, in a delicate manner. And so it may seem simple when you're looking at it, but it does require thought and and to do it in a respectful way.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot, and also lighting in general. Like lighting is important, and now they have the lights. They make them so easy, but back then it was like you had to meter it. There was film. There was no digital. It was, so you took Polaroids, and so learning all that was just it was valuable to a career in photography.
That's great because my next question was, what was the most valuable lesson you learned from working with him? And you answered it with two answers. I was it after that that you started working for magazines?
Well, Richard, the same way Bill got assigned to Cruise, Richard rather, he was shooting for, at the time, he was shooting for the LFP magazines. And he said, if you're interested, I'm having dinner with the editor, like the big guy over there. And not Larry, but the editor, the main editor.
Uh-huh.
And so I went with him, met him, and then after that, I showed him my work and started shooting for him, and ended up shooting for him for like almost 18 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And during that time, Richard stopped, and then he started shooting more fashion. And he's still shooting, now he shoots like for Interview and a lot of the big magazines. Um, but I have him to thank for kind of helping me there and getting me because you have to get your foot in the door, and so he's just a generous person and a good friend. Maintained our friendship over the years. Yeah.
Did a lot of, I mean, did you ever work in Hustler too, or was it mostly like Taboo? Taboo was a magazine you shot for, right?
Taboo and Barely Legal, I was like in every month for like every issue. And then Hustler, I did shoot for, um, but probably maybe like 10 or 15 issues I was in. But I shot like a few covers and I did a portrait of Larry Flint for their
Wow.
like anniversary issue. So yeah, I did some cool stuff, yeah, for
Were
them.
there a lot of famous adult stars and models that you had to shoot right away, and what was that like for you?
That was cool. It was fun because another thing I learned from Richard is you've you've got this model, kind of let the agent know because they all goes through agents basically.
Hmm.
Um, and so I would let them know, okay, on top of the shoot, I'm going to shoot this stuff for my artwork that I'm kind of, my art books that I want to collect basically. Um, and you just get ideas and you just save work over the years because it doesn't like books don't happen overnight. They take like over like 5 or so years to create that to gather up enough work to do something like that. So I would do all these series, the models were like um taking breaks and I would just go out and just photograph them like that. And they just look natural and they're just like smoking or on their cell. Back then there was no cell phones even, but they were like, usually smoke breaks or when they're getting their makeup on, I would take photos of them. And then I started shooting like I would shoot them with no makeup on, and I had this like lighting setup that I had like this huge Octabank, and so it looked real natural. And so I would just like, and then I would shoot them up like when they were leaving, like with their bags and like kind of cool stuff that other
Yeah.
people weren't really doing. And and so I'm good at like getting collecting. And so all that, a lot of that work and a lot of the work that the rights eventually revert back to you. So I have like because of that, I have a lot of books, some of which I don't, whatever. But some of them are just like the work I got back, and it's just like a tamer edit of that work, basically, because I didn't want it to. So, but a lot of it, like I have a new book called BTS, and it's just these natural light behind the scenes photos that I think is really cool. Um, and so, yeah, that's.
I like your style. For people that don't know, a lot of your photos explore identity, sexuality, and I love the way you shot your interviews, and I've watched many of them over the
Mm.
years. Like Carter, I was watching the Carter Cruise one because I'm a fan of hers, and Lacey Lennon was excellent, Giselle Palmer, and of course, who I can call the greatest ever, Sasha Grey. I mean, I watched these interviews you did, and they just look like no heavy makeup, just natural.
Well, the Sasha Grey one actually wasn't from that series. That was actually an interview. It's kind of like sarcastic, like the whole, it's kind of
Yes.
it's meant to be funny, but that wasn't from like the series I started doing where the other ones you mentioned, that was actually shot for private. And that was from a movie I shot of hers that was for a Spanish film company called Private. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think
so
you didn't do the interview on that one, but I
it was
thought,
it was Jim Lane, Jim Powers did it. Yeah.
but you shot it though, right?
No, I think he shot it and asked the questions. I was like probably doing other stuff.
Oh,
But it was
sorry.
but it was under it was like I was a movie I was directing.
Okay.
So I like just gave him the questions and then I think he's really funny when he asks the questions. And that's why it's so kind of just that's a funny one. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember it being.
well, I
Yeah.
was, if you, people listening out there, if you go to the Dave Naz YouTube page, there's a lot Yeah, a lot. I
Yeah.
really like the way you expanded it and your exploration with gender and the queer and trans lifestyle.
Mm.
That must have been really interesting for you to do that.
Yeah, I like that series. It was right around the time like Twitter was popular. I mean, it's still popular, but when it started to get popular.
Yeah,
And I remember seeing these people in adult, but that looked kind of genderless or like, you know, uh,
non-binary. Yeah,
yeah, non-binary. And so I reached out to a few of them, and just because I'd been, I shot a lot, I could point to something that I've done, to show that you know, I wasn't just trying to like send them some weird DM or something. So I started shooting them and then I started photographing them, not really knowing what. And I also knew like Buck Angel and a few other people just because they were kind of in the fetish world and I knew a lot of people in that world. Um, and so I started just taking portraits and not really knowing what I was going to do with it, which is kind of how everything starts, I guess. It's the genesis of every project is like you just start doing it and then I'm not, nothing is fully realized in the beginning when, like I kind of, I, I go with it and figure out what is working, what is not, because you can have a full plan in your head and it just can go to hell. Um, and so I figured out what I liked, and it turned out I was talking to the people when I was taking their portraits, and I wasn't filming that, and I realized I should probably film them before because they're all interesting,
yes.
and I only shot really people that had what I thought had like good style. Like I wouldn't just shoot anybody. It was like they had to have a look. And I remember the thing that inspired me to do it actually was Catherine Opie, um, and her like photos of that, of all her friends, and Bucks in that series, and Pigpen's in that series, and and I remember that, and I remember seeing like her show at Mocha, and then there's like a photo of a girl in the back of her head. It says Dyke, like tattooed on the back of her neck, and I was like, oh wow, that's bold, um, to do that. And so that got me interested in it, and I kind of, but obviously it doesn't look anything like her work, but in the same way that I would say like Richard's work inspired me and a lot of people's work inspires me, but you never want to be derivative. So you have to find your own look. And so I think I did with those two, and it ended up being like two different books. The first one got a fair amount of attention, um, and we did a show at the University of Redlands, and then Lace did a Q&A, and so did the university. And then Coagula did a gallery show of that work. And then by the time the second book came out, it was like very much in the mainstream that
Yeah.
like it is now. And but then no one would talk to me about it. Like they wouldn't because they were already on. Other people were doing it, and I wasn't. You don't want the older white guy doing it. So I guess they just blew me off. But the people in the series were just super cool, and I've remained friends with many of them.
We touched on this a little before, but are you surprised that being a sex worker is not ridiculed anymore the way it would have been like 20 years ago?
It's different. I think it's good that the model now has the power,
Hmm.
um, and they kind of control what people see and how they want to be presented and all that, which is great. Um, But I would still say there's a stigma. Like if you just wanted to go into like mainstream, now there's like this digital footprint of you, and even like with the work I've done, I'm sure I'm discriminated as far as like I would have a hard time getting certain jobs, just because of the work I've done. And it's like, so I think that stigma is still there, which can be a problem later on.
Yeah, so we haven't come far enough, is what you're saying.
Well, because it's so hypocritical because everyone's looking at it. Not everybody, but a lot of people are looking at it. They don't want to admit it, and then those same people are discriminating against the people that they enjoy watching. And so,
Yeah, there's
but
not too many people that don't know about OnlyFans and Pornhub. You know, I mean, it's like they've
yeah.
become very popular websites. Before you go, is there anything that you got coming up that you want to promote in the future? Are you working on anything now? Music
Well,
or photography or film?
I haven't done any interviews in a while because I stopped shooting for the magazines in 2019. But I have been doing these cat portraits, which are fantastic, I think. And there's a book that's going to be coming out, I think next year, like early next year. And I'm like really excited about that. And if you go to my website, davenaz.com, there's like a cat portraits link, and that'll send you to that. Um, but I photographed like kind of foo-foo cats and rescues and a lot of disabled cats with like missing legs and missing eyes and all kinds of issues, but that are very happy because they're most of them are in a sanctuary, and then the rest that I've photographed have like wonderful owners that take great care of them. And so and I put all these cats together and
It's fantastic. I love
yeah.
cats.
Oh, you do? Cool. Yeah.
Let me see if I can I don't know
Oh,
if you can
yeah.
see him.
Very cool.
That's Cam. He's a rescue and he's named after it. There's this no-kill shelter that I did work with called Kitty Angels, and they started running out of names for cats. So they started naming the cats after towns in Maine. Camden, Maine. Camden, Maine.
Nice. Nice.
Maybe
That's
he'll be
cool.
in one of your books some days. Who knows?
Where do you live now?
I'm in the Boston area.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Otherwise, I'd bring my cat over to your
Yeah, I
place.
was gonna say if you're in the neighborhood,
Dave,
you can
thanks
make
a
the
lot.
deadline.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure you were wondering when I wrote you, what does this guy want? But you have an interesting life, you know.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm kind of a private person, so I just don't do a lot of these.
Well, I'm
But
honored.
you seem, I saw a lot of people you've interviewed. You had like Tanya Donnelly
Yeah,
and Jackie Fox.
she was something else. She told the great story about Lita Ford strangling her. That was the best story I
Oh
think
shit.
I've heard.
But yeah, I definitely admire them.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for having me on.
my pleasure, man. All right.
Yeah. Okay.